all, welcome to another episode. Today I just want to quickly show you how to use iToo Forest Lite to make the placement of the trees. Alright, so let's start. The plugin we're going to use today is called iToo Forest Pack. Put the links in the descriptions below. So iToo Forest Pack is a really powerful scattering tool for 3DsMax. It can do, scatter the trees, vegetations among the surface and along the splines and give you a really nice rendering outcomes. It works pretty well with V-Ray. So if you use the Forest Pack with V-Ray, and that's super quick and light for your 3DsMax instead of just to have geometries, lots of trees geometries in your files. You could get the full version. I think they have an education plan. It's around lower than $100 for a year, and you can get a pack with another tool from the iToo, which is the Real Claw. But today what we're gonna use is just the live version. So there's a couple of things can't really use with the live version. You can't really use the Forest Pack library, and you can't really have dynamic surface. Basically you can only use on a planar surface. Let's start it. So what you're gonna do is just to download it. Alright, you're gonna create an account. If you followed the previous tutorials we posted, you probably already create an account, because if you want to get the spline offset, you need to create an account with iToo. So just to use the same account and sign into your forest and get it download. Alright, installation of the iToo Forest Pack is pretty straightforward. It is an exe file. So basically just double click it and it will take the job by itself. Alright, after you install the Forest Pack, it will have a little icon over there. Otherwise probably just not successfully installed. You probably, if you don't have that icon there, ideally just check the customize user interface and under the toolbars and have a look, see if you have the Forest Pack available under your categories. Alright, so let's start from the scratch. So we're gonna continue build on the models we used for the Rapid City blocks. If you haven't checked that tutorials, you can find, I'll put the links over here, check that. So if you come from that tutorials, basically you will have a city block which is can be controlled with your driver's splines. So if I change my arrangement of the streets, the whole block will follow. Alright, so we're gonna create a spline to control our tree placement as well. So you're gonna find your driveways again, right click on that, make a clone copy. You're gonna use a reference, we just call it trees. Let's call just the trees. Alright, so after that, let's use another spline offset. Spline offset. Let's find a spline offset somewhere here. Alright, so let's isolate that, make it clear. So probably just have, untick the keep original. Alright, and we can set the volumes here. So maybe let's keep the trees away from the city blocks, maybe 5 meters. Alright, that pretty much, and rest of them you can keep that as it is. Keep the end type as close to line rather than the open bar, and that's it. So we can get back. So that's our tree guideline. So you can always go back and change the values. So if you feels like that is too close to your buildings, we can change to 10, or let's stay at 7. And once you have the forest on top of that, because the trees are gonna controlled by these splines, you can still change them. Alright, So the next step is just to click on this little forest icon and click on the splines over there. Alright, nothing happened, but like it will create a object called forest. Well, I have a forest already in this scenarios, so it's called 002. So for yours, if you've the first time used the forest, yours probably gonna just be forest 001. Okay, of course we can rename the forest with the forest 002 selected. Let's just jump back to the modify panels. Forest, let's call street trees. Stay organized. Okay, so you'll see there's nothing happened because we haven't assigned geometries onto those splines. Alright, so if now we add a geometry here, you'll see, okay, the hidden object from the viewport, we'll just click OK. Basically, it's just telling you they're going to use a proxy object or the point cloud to display an object since we have going to plug massive objects onto that. Click OK. And here you can see you can use some default template there, right? You got like 3 template trees. Let's isolate that. I'll have a look. So those, you can see those are just to represent little trees. It's scattering massive trees there. And also you could use a customized object. Alright, so I'll use that teapot I already created there as the placement. So for example, if you have a tree model imported into the 3DsMax, they can be used as a customized object, and I'll just use a teapot as an example. Alright, you probably find out it's not really follow the lines, it's just to place the trees inside of all those splines. So what we're gonna do is here, so first I want to introduce these. So the distribute. So currently the distribute are set to image. So basically you're gonna use an image which is a texture map to control the placement of the trees. And here is the unit of that. If I enlarge that unit, basically you'll see the difference. That's not enough. You'll see there's less trees here, which is just because we changed the units to a higher value. Also, you have different map to control the placement, or you can use your own map, texture map, to control the placement. It can be placed in the grid, or it can be placed in just a horizontal line, different scatter mode. But now, because we want the trees along the splines, what we're gonna do is change the mode to the path, and then after that I will ask you to choose the path again. So just click on this little add button, alright, and click on the path again. Now all of the trees are placed just along the path we signed. The spacing is too small. Let's set to a higher number, maybe 30, because my actually have a relatively quite big teapot there, so it will looks like it's really close to each other. As I mentioned, when we click that OK, it suggests use a proxy shape to represent the geometry you signed. If you just want to see the exact geometries or just to use a point cloud to display that, you can always go back to the display panel there and change that to back to mesh. That will slow down your 3DsMax a bit because it's using the mesh now, but you can see exactly what you have here. Alright, so or you could use the point cloud. That's much lighter, but you can still see the overall shape of that. The other thing is really useful is the transform. So under the forest, you can enable the transformations. You can make that rotate a little bit, give it a different variation of the size, and scales that control the size. Let's enable that as well. Alright, so we now currently have a bit of diversity of the teapot. So now if I turn on, set up a really quick rendering there. So now if I enable my teapot, you will see roughly I got all of the teapots along those splines, and have them rendered well in my scenarios. Because we're using the free version of the Forest, so we don't have the tree library, but there's a trick you can get lots of trees if you use V-Ray. So available on the V-Ray, there's a Cosmos browser. Basically, that's a big 3D library which is available for all of the encrypted users. So under that, you could find vegetation and trees. There are lots of trees available there, tree mod, and like they can be just imported as a V-Ray proxy. So that's pretty light. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this orange box. Click on that. I already downloaded. What I just need to do is just import that. Alright, I have that imported, which is over here. See? Now I can go back to my forest. Alright. Replace that teapot with my actual tree. So click on that and click on the trees I have. Yeah, we use a proxy to replace that. But like when you do the renders, you should get a okay result. Okay, let's have a test render now. Turn on my V-Ray. That's a bit small. That's probably the right size of the trees. My teapot probably way too big. But you can see you can get a pretty well, diversity of the trees. You can, of course, under the forest, you can see when we add the geometries, it allows you to add multiple geometries here. So for example, I can add another tree types. Alright, there. So you can have a bit of diversity of the tree types in our scenarios, and also you can control the spacing of the trees. Go back to our distribution. Alright, I can change my spacing to 15. Now 50 meters. Now I have more straight trees along those lines, and since we're using a parametric model and this all controlled by my controlled spline, I can go back to my spline offset and change the value here. So maybe get it much closer to the building. Let's change this to 5, and you will see all of the trees will follow. And yeah, and that's the basic of using the forest to place your street trees. And you probably notice while we use the distribution mode, let's get back to the forest. Yeah, if we change back this mode to the image or the reference, basically it means like you can draw an area. Okay, and have just all of the trees inside of that area. So if you want to, do a park or some do a massive scattering among area, you could use forest to achieve that, and that's pretty light, and that works really well with the V-Ray rendering. But there's a limitation for the Forest Pack Lite. You probably notice it's suggested on their website the free version does not have the function of place the trees or place these scatterings on the dynamic surface. If you have a terrain, for example, you can't really place that in that way. You can only work on the plane. In another tutorial, we'll try to use the tile flow to replace the forest, to do the same thing for the street trees, but with the tile flow, we'll be able to recast those trees onto a dynamic surface. Alright, I'll see you in another episode.